In case you're just joining us, we're talking with candidates in the primary on Tuesday, April 3rd for the Democratic nomination for the at-large seat on the Washington, D.C. Council. The candidates are E. Gail Anderson Holness, Sekou Biddle, Peter Shapiro, and the incumbent Vincent Orange. Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's an NBC4 reporter and a columnist for the current newspapers. If you have already called at 800-433-8850, we will get to your call. You can also send email to kojo@wamu.org. Tom?
Ethics is not the wet blanket that's hanging over the city. It's the wet mattress. It really hangs over. And Mr. Orange, you're on the council. You're in many ways in politics. You know, you got guilt by association there. I think it's fair to point out at this point you have not been charged with any ethical violations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not under.
That's not a 30-second answer.
I understand, but we need to be very clear. Vincent Orange is not under federal investigation, not under local investigation. Have not been accused of any wrongdoing of whatsoever.
All right. Harry Thomas Jr. will be sentenced on May 3rd. The expectation is he was the former Ward 5 council member who was convicted, or he actually pled guilty to stealing money from youth programs in the city. I look back, I was trying to find a place where Mr. Orange, where you criticized him, either after the Attorney General made him agree to pay back the $300,000, or even leading up to his pleading guilty. I personally knew him since he was a much younger guy, and I'm personally furious at what he did, stealing from the. But I didn't see anything in the record. I just wondered, when did you first criticize him for what he did?
Well,
or have you?
Well, you know, there were internal meetings with Mr. Thomas and the council. There was recommendations that we put to him, and you know, that was an internal process. Also, it's very clear that if there was going to be an internal process in the council, I wanted to chair the committee.
I'm talking about the weight of public opinion.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. If you, in order to start our process in the council, our rule says if the person starts the censorship process, then you cannot be a part of the committee that the chairman is required to.
No, and I'm just talking about just staying publicly, as I did.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying.
That's what he did.
Yeah, what I'm saying is
not some process of the council which is lethargic and slow moving.
No, what I'm saying is that there's 13 council members. 3 council members came out and spoke out publicly, and there was 10 council members that did not.
Right.
And so the 10 of us.
And you were in the group of 10.
I was in the group of 10. No, I did not. And I had my specific reasons because I thought there was going to be a censorship process, and I wanted to chair that committee. Under our rules, there's a 5-person committee.
But Mr. Orange, do you understand that there is, or maybe a public perception that what we have in the District of Columbia is an old boy network in the council, despite the fact that there happen to be women who are members of the council, and that what they do is that they circle the wagons around one another and simply refuse to criticize one another in public, and that raises questions in the minds of the public about what else are council members not talking about that they may not know about. How can you convince the voters in the District of Columbia that everything that goes on in this council is transparent if, in fact, you don't come out and openly criticize your fellow council members when they seem to be guilty of wrongdoing?
Well, first of all, Kojo, personnel matters are matters that are not discussed in public. It's just under our rules. That's the system that we have in place. In addition to that,
is it a personnel matter?
Yes, it was.
It's astounding to think
it was a personnel matter. As you know, the council chair had several executive meetings on this issue, and the press was not allowed in. There was a vote in the beginning of the meeting, and under our rules, that's how it was addressed. But can I make this one point?
I don't want to go. What I want to know is, were you personally offended by the theft of $300,000?
Absolutely.
I mean, I just don't think I ever heard you say that. I want to hear you say it.
Absolutely, I was personally offended.
You think he should go to jail?
Well, that is up to the judge, and we already know that he will probably look at a minimum of 3 years, a maximum of 5 years.
Okay. What about?
There's one point I want to make. Just
very
one point, very quickly. Also, I think what gave some people pause is that when the government entered into a settlement agreement with Mr. Thomas, they did not require him to state a admission of guilt. And Mr. Thomas used that to say that, see, even the government knows that, I'm not guilty. I promised to pay the money back, but they stopped short of having him.
Well, I thought Yvette Alexander had the greatest answer on that. She said, I wouldn't pay back $300,000 if I didn't think I took it illegally. But anyway, Tom, what about the attitude of ethics? On just 15 seconds on this. It's the attitude that Well, it's all kind of a matter of process. We'll work it all out. It seems to me people I talk to on the streets just don't like that at all. They just think people ought to be more outraged. Not avenging angels, pardon me, Reverend Holiness, but they're just
that's
anger.
right.
I'm going to get to Reverend.
There are a lot of demons around. Trust me, Tom. And when we talk about it, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And not answering the question and not being receptive to the community is what we need in new leadership. We need leadership that is going to speak truth to power. Leadership that is going to speak out when it's wrong.
Well, you said that these campaign ethics issues are a distraction, and Tom characterizes them not as a blanket, but as more like a wet.
It is a wet blanket because it's a mattress. We can't get from under it.
This distraction, however, has become the main focus of attention both for the media and for the criminal justice system and for a lot of people in the city. How would your presence on the council change that?
I think my presence on the council would bring the integrity and the ethical behavior that we need, because what we're seeing now are people who disrespect each other, people obviously who have no morals. I think we need to change if we change the culture, and we're change agents in life, and we either are part of the problem or we're part of the solution. If we keep doing the same thing that we've always done, we're going to get the same results we've always gotten. If we keep the same council, this is the worst council that I have seen in my years of being in Washington, D.C. since 1978. And I mean worse. There have not always been good ones, but when we have an ethical cloud hanging over us in this mattress, it is something that we can't get over. We can't get to the issues of education. We can't get to the issues of employment for D.C. residents. We can't get to the issues of parking. We can't get to the issues of affordable
Peter
housing.
Shapiro, I want to stay on ethics for a second, because you were a part of an ethics task force put together in Prince George's County in the wake of the scandal that sent former Executive Jack Johnson to prison. You used to serve, as we mentioned, on the council there, but I read this week that you only attended a handful of the ethics board's meetings. Why is that?
I actually attended a majority of the meetings, and a good chunk of the work was done outside of the work of the meetings as well.
Well, you missed 4 of 7. I mean, you missed 3 of 7, so you attended 4 of 7. So technically you attended a majority.
I worked very hard on that commission, and I think if you speak to Dean Schmoke, Kurt Schmoke was the co-chair of that in Judge Missouri, I think they would attest to how much work I put into that.
What ethical difference do you think you'd make on the D.C. Council?
First of all, leading by example. And I want to pick up on what Mr. Orange just said, and I want to use your words, Kojo, which is this is about a good old boy network. It makes no sense. It's not in the interest of the residents to say that I'm not going to speak out against a colleague who is clearly in the midst of some serious wrongdoing because I want to make sure I have a seat at the table. For me, that's a terrible leadership style, and it's not in the interest of the residents of the city to take up that kind of a leadership style.
And Sekou Biddle, you've been quiet so far, but I'm going to allow Michael on DuPont Circle to address a question specifically to you. Will all of you put on your headsets, please, so that we can hear the questioner? Michael, you are now on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is a question for Sekou Biddle. He was supported on the council by Kwame Brown and the mayor during his last term. He never mentions on the when he's campaigning that he was on the city council last year. So, Sekou Biddle, what makes this year and last year different? Are you still being supported by Kwame Brown and Marion Barry?
Sekou Biddle, and it's not the city council. I make that mistake from time to time myself.
Bad mistake to make.
Council of the District of Columbia.
Yes.
So what several things make this different. Obviously, in the intro today, I mentioned I served briefly as an appointee on the council. I think we could check the audio from today's show and verify that's the case. I think Michael also overlooks the fact that last year I was in a situation in which I was supported by a number of elected officials, including the mayor and the chair, but also several other colleagues on the council. This year, I am not. I've been running very, very hard. I've received the support and endorsement of numerous institutions, newspapers, including the Washington Post, the Washington City Paper, the Northwest Current. And I think that, there's a consensus building that I am the right and best choice for this seat on the council. And I've been earning that each day going out talking to residents.
Does your website note your previous service on the council? I don't think I looked. I don't remember. Does it? I don't think it does.
I have to look.
Or the recent mailings that have gone out.
Good.
Well, can you name, Sekou Biddle, 1 or 2 things that you did during your time on the council that demonstrated leadership or demonstrated that you were trying to upset the setups, shake the status quo?
Yeah, well, I took on the issue of truancy, which is a huge issue in the District of Columbia. Obviously, as a former school teacher, I can assure you that children who are not in school aren't learning any of the things that we're doing and providing for them in school. So I ran a special committee on school truancy, on truancy and school safety. Now, this was a committee that wasn't funded. We didn't have a budget for. I recruited a set of volunteers to help us put together a task force and commission and work on this issue. We issued a report with recommendations on how to address the issue in truancy. So, I clearly went after some issues I thought were important, that I could accomplish something in the 4 months. We all know the legislative process doesn't allow you a lot to accomplish in that short period of time.
Sekou Biddle is a Democratic candidate for the D.C. Council. He's running for an at-large seat in next Tuesday's primary. He joins us in studio along with E. Gail Anderson Holness, Vincent Orange, the incumbent, and Peter Shapiro. They are all participating in that primary election on Tuesday, April 4th. Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst, an NBC4 reporter, and a columnist for the current newspapers. Tom?
Well, we're kind of beating up on two of the candidates. Let's go to Peter Shapiro.
Let's beat up on somebody else.
I looked at your website bio then, and I couldn't tell, what do you do for a living? How do you earn money?
I'm a leadership consultant. I work with individuals and organizations. I train, I teach. For a number of years, I ran a leadership center at the University of Maryland, and that leadership center actually trained public leaders to be more effective leaders. Worked with undergraduates as well.
Your bio has nothing about your ever earning a job. It just talks about your community stuff. Is there a reason for that?
No,
you don't want to call yourself a consultant? And
I like my work. Actually, I'm proud of it. I'm very effective at it. I work with both at the individual level, the organizational level. I work with public leaders. I work with corporate leaders. I have all sorts of.
Would this be a raise? The $125,000. So would that be a raise for you?
No, it would be a pay cut. Actually,
will be a pay cut. Reverend Holness.
Would it be a pay cut?
What
do I do?
You're the head of the Interfaith Council,
Yes.
Metropolitan Council. But what do you do? How do you earn money?
I'm pastor of Christ Our Redeemer AME Church in Washington, D.C., formerly at the University of the District of Columbia until last year as Director of Community Outreach and Involvement, formerly Special Assistant to the President of the University of the District of Columbia. And I also have a not-for-profit that I run, the Anderson Holiness Group. And I speak all over this world. I just got back from Israel. I've
paid to speak.
Well, let me ask you to speak on another issue, because the city's in the process of rolling out a medical marijuana regime. The Washington Post reporting today that the health department is expected to announce the winning bidders for growing plants that will feed dispensaries. What concerns do you have about the city's medical marijuana program as it's, rolled out on a citywide basis?
Yeah, my concern are the concerns of the resident. I was at one of ANC 5's meeting, and the residents were strongly against the numbers that were coming into their community. Again, we need to listen to the individuals in the community before we make decisions. They didn't necessarily say they didn't want the dispensaries in Washington, D.C. Their major concern was that the dispensaries would be in their neighborhood. We know that there are different drugs in our community, all kind of drugs. Everybody in America is almost on some kind of drugs. Our children are on Ritalin, all kinds of other Valium that people are on. So this is a drug that will be used for medicinal purposes, from our understanding. But to put it in one particular place, I was there the night that even Montel Williams was there as one of the persons who was trying to bring it in. But the residents were adamantly against all of them coming in their community. And so I think, again, we should listen to the concerns of the neighbors, find out what their issues are, and shell them out, and not just put them in one place.
You want to put one in Ward 3? Where would you put one in Ward 3?
Ward 3, and we'd have to review where there's space for it to go.
On to Roberto in Washington, D.C. Roberto, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Please don your headphones again, please. Roberto, your turn.
Yes, Mr. Orange said that he would like to ban second jobs of council members, but this was not his position last April. Why the change, and do the other candidates want to ban outside employment?
Well, today the council and this government is under a big cloud, and these issues have come to the forefront. When I came on the council, when the citizens brought me back, that was part of my platform, that I would change the culture and that I would introduce ethics legislation. I introduced 4 of the 10 bills. One was to ban outside employment, one was term limits, and the other one was to put together a task force, and the other one was to have ethics certification. And I accomplished in putting those pieces of legislation forward. Now, today, we see that we have council members that are actually working for organizations that do business with the city, while at the same time they want to ban corporate contributions. And to me, I don't believe that is a good approach. I think you should ban both. We should take the cloud away. Let's remove that cloud. So that's the reason why I have put that piece of legislation forward.
Sure.
And I'd like to ask people to join in.